gardeners. So today I wanted to make a video talking about what is the best beginner snake. So I chose corn snakes and ball pythons because those are some of the most common beginner snakes that you hear about, and I know I've talked about in the past that I don't recommend ball pythons to beginners, but there are always exceptions, so I'm just going to break everything down today and start from square one and try not to be biased whatsoever. You guys know I absolutely used to hate ball pythons and I was just not a fan, but honestly, I think I've come around and I actually prefer ball pythons over corn snakes now. Totally was never going to expect that to happen, but it happened, so I'm making this video completely unbiased and just based off of general information, a little bit of my opinion, so this is not a total black and white situation, so don't hate me for this video. If you have any questions or concerns, obviously leave it in a comment below. So let's just go ahead and get started. So the very first category that I wanted to talk about when it comes to the best beginner snake is the level of care. So between ball pythons and corn snakes, the level of care is very similar. However, there are some differences, and it can make ball pythons a little bit more difficult when it comes to caring for them, just because they do require a higher humidity level. Corn snakes do not require the higher humidity level, which makes them a little bit easier to maintain in captivity. So just because of that, when it comes to care, the corn snake is going to win this round because they are just a little bit easier. However, if you are familiar with taking care of reptiles and humidity and you keep crested geckos or whatever the case is, then obviously a ball python is going to be up your alley and it shouldn't be a problem whatsoever. But I'm basing this video on someone that's completely new to snakes and just completely new to reptiles in general. So when it comes to care, the corn snakes are going to win the ease of care. So the next category that I wanted to cover is handleability. So for someone that's completely new to snakes, obviously any snake could be a little bit scary to hold if you're just kind of nervous about them and just completely unfamiliar. However, ball pythons and corn snakes are very, very different. They have totally different demeanors, totally different ways of defending themselves. So corn snakes are most likely going to just want to get away from you. So corn snakes are not known to sit still. They like to keep moving. That can freak a new person out big time because they don't want to have to handle a snake that's just flying all over the place and extremely flighty. That being said, maybe the ball python might be a little bit easier when it comes to handleability because they're way more slow moving and they will literally just sit in a ball. It's why they're called ball pythons. When they're nervous or scared, they literally just ball up and sit there, and then when they actually do come out, they're pretty slow moving snakes. So for somebody that's completely new to snakes and reptile keeping, I think the ball pythons are easier when it comes to handleability. The next category is feeding. So feeding is so important because obviously it's the number one thing you need to do when you're taking care of your snake. You have to feed it. Ball pythons are known to be such difficult eaters. Not every single one is going to be this way. However, it is very common for them to go off of feeding or get them to start eating once you bring them into a new environment. There's just so many different things that go into it. And because of that, corn snakes are just so much easier when it comes to feeding. They hardly ever refuse a meal unless they're sick or something is going on and the husbandry isn't on point. Corn snakes are not known to refuse a meal, whereas the ball pythons are notoriously known to just go off of feeding, to be difficult to start going. Sometimes they don't want to eat anything other than live, and it's kind of just a mess that can be stressful for a beginner. So when it comes to feeding, the corn snakes are obviously going to win this department compared to the ball pythons. The next category is visual appeal. So this is completely a matter of preference. Corn snakes and ball pythons both come in many, many, many different morphs. They are gorgeous. They're just stunning. There's so many different patterns and colors and things going on with them. So as a competition between the corn snake and ball python for visual appeal, it has to be a tie because that is just completely a matter of personal preference and what you guys are into and what you like. The next category is chances of biting. So this is a very controversial area, and I know some people are going to be very angry with what I'm saying. So I do want you guys to keep in mind that there is no set rules, and every single snake is an individual and is going to behave in a different way. I'm just covering the general behaviors of the snake as a whole because I've had experience with both, and I'm talking about my own experiences and what I've witnessed with both of these species of snake. That being said, corn snakes, from what I have seen, corn snakes are mainly just flighty and want to get away from you. They are not very defensive whatsoever. They are not known to come out and bite you. That is not saying that a corn snake is never going to bite you, because there's always a chance, like if a snake is really threatened and it feels that it's the only way to protect itself, it's going to bite. However, from what I see with corn snakes, they're just extremely flighty and they don't want to bite you whatsoever. The only thing that I've heard is that maybe if a corn snake bites a person, it's because they're hungry or they mistake the person for food or just a type of situation like that. However, when it comes to ball pythons, a lot of people say ball pythons do not bite. They will just ball up and they won't bite you. However, I, in my own personal experiences, have never been struck at by any animal more than ball pythons. From my experience, they would go in the little ball, and then when they would come out, it would be in a defensive state. They wouldn't calm down and they would be striking at me and trying to bite me. So that being said, I'm not saying all ball pythons are going to be like this and bite you, because I have my own ball python that does not behave like that whatsoever. He will just completely chill. He doesn't even ball up. He's just the most chill snake ever. He would never strike at me. He's just very, very calm and has a very nice demeanor. A lot of other ball pythons are like that. I'm saying though that generally I think a ball python is more likely to strike at a person than a corn snake. That's not saying corn snakes never bite people, and it's not saying ball pythons always bite people. It's just generally from what I have experienced, it's what I think. So don't watch this video and think, oh my god, she's saying that this snake is gonna bite me and this one isn't, so I need to get this type of a snake, because that's not how it works. Every snake is an individual. Once you become more comfortable with snakes and learn their body language, it's very easy to not get bitten by any snake whatsoever. I have never been bitten by any snake that I own, so it's very possible to do. Once you get more experience and knowledge about these animals, it's way easier to work with them. If you are just flat out completely afraid of getting bitten by a snake, you probably just shouldn't get a snake, because there's always a possibility that it could bite you no matter what type of snake. So when it comes down to it, in my personal experience, I think that corn snakes are less likely to bite you than ball pythons. And the final category that I want to talk about is size. So corn snakes are much smaller than ball pythons, mainly because they are way thinner, more narrow snakes. Ball pythons are way heavier bodied, they're thicker, and they do get a little bit bigger than corn snakes. They both are pretty decent sized snakes for beginners because they don't get too large and they're definitely manageable. However, when it comes down to this category, it's totally a matter of preference and what you guys are into. I personally like thicker bodied snakes. I just enjoy handling them more, and I like slower moving snakes, so I would pick ball pythons for this category. But I'm not going to choose anything for this category for this video because it's totally a matter of preference and what you guys are into. So I'm just going to break all of this down and review everything that we just talked about, and we will come up with our winner. So when it comes to care, feeding, and less chances of biting, all of those go to the corn snake. When it comes to handleability, that has to go to the ball pythons. And when it comes to visual appeal and size, that is just a complete matter of preference, up to you guys. So after breaking everything down, I personally think that a corn snake is the best snake for a beginner. They're just way easier to care for, way easier to manage, and I think that people will have a more successful time caring for a corn snake as their first time around rather than a ball python. That's not saying that you can't ever get a ball python as a beginner. It's not saying you have to get a corn snake as a beginner, because it's totally up to you guys. As long as you do your research and you understand how to care for an animal and you're willing to put all of the work in for that animal, then you can absolutely do it. My very first snake was a Brazilian rainbow boa. That is not a beginner snake, but I'm very committed and passionate, and I did a ton of research before I got my snake, so it made it a very successful situation for me and my snake. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that I didn't make too many people angry about this video, because some of the things I'm saying is extremely controversial, but it's just based off of my own experiences. And I'm not saying that this is set in stone and this is how it is, and because it's just a matter of opinion and preference. So thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.